Next speaker is Dr. Paul Lebbin from the Canadian National Research Council, and he will tell us about what his organization is doing for us.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Paul Lebbin. I'm a Research Council officer for the National Research Council of Canada. Just so you're aware, we're part of the Government of Canada. We work under the Ministry of Industry. Just want to be clear, we're separate from the Transport Canada or Canadian Transportation Agency. We do not set policy, but what we do is we work with the regulatory agencies as well as the industry to provide them either the information, the technologies, or the know-how that they can use and implement into various areas. So in my area, so we're working on the aircraft cabin. So let's see. Okay, there's a lot of areas we can cover in this. I only have about 12 to 15 minutes to present this, so I focused on the three areas. So I should use the symbols from the destinations. So we're looking at the individuals with reduced mobility, as well as those with limited eyesight and hard of hearing. So looking at the trends in the aircraft industry, the airline industry as well, and seeing how that impacts the individuals that fall into these groups, and look at areas how we can potentially improve to accommodate these people with these different types of limitations. So first I just wanted to do a quick review of some of the assistive devices and techniques for those who are not familiar with some of the devices used. Obviously wheelchairs are probably the most obvious one. There are a lot of different variants of it. You have battery powered, you have manual powered type wheelchairs, but just one thing I want to point out, a wheelchair, like if you look at it's like a typical wheelchair, it's about 30 inches wide and it takes a footprint about 40 inches long. But when you look at an economy seat, it's about 17 or 19 inches wide, and then a seat-to-seat pitch of about 30 inches. So to put that in perspective, if you're going to have, say, a wheelchair on board the aircraft, assuming you could fly that wheelchair on the aircraft, you would need to remove 3 economy seats for every wheelchair that you put on board the aircraft. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. There's also other techniques for using different textures and colors. If you've ever taken a subway, you see this all the time on the edge of the platform. You have a yellow stripe, different texture to indicate the danger zones. This is similar techniques that they can use in the aircraft as well. There's also for the people with reduced eyesight using communication technologies, braille and descriptive audio. There's something that you don't see in aircraft, but I'll go into a little more detail. There's an opportunity to be able to incorporate this into the aircraft cabin. And there's closed caption or CC or TTY, which is a two-way form of communications with an operator and typewriters on both sides. Also, we heard this morning about service animals, so I won't go into much more detail on that because I think that was very well covered this morning by Penny, I believe that was her name. And we also can't forget about the people who assist others, so we need to make sure we be able to accommodate not only the individuals, but also the people that are helping them. So, so some of the trends, just one area is premium economy class seats. I came back from a aircraft interiors conference last week in Seattle. This topic received a lot of debate and discussion. So there's what premium economy, it's a loose definition. Depends where you are. If you're in North America or Europe, if you're in premium economy, typically you can get 2 to 12 inches an increase in legroom. The seats may not be wider, or it could be up to 4 inches wider than regular economy seat. Now, they're seeing an explosion here of the premium economy over the last 10 years. 10 years ago, only 4% of the aircraft was equipped with premium economy, and then today we see about 28% of the aircraft, and it's continuing to increase. So what it is the airlines are responding to a market pressure to fill a price gap between the J and Y class. J is the economy class, the people up front. Y class is your economy class in the back. So one of the statistics that was presented last week is the cost of the average cost of the premium economy is about 68% of the business class, or 125% the cost of the economy. Now, there's some limitations. There's typically premium economy is in between these two classes and are not near a washroom. So if you're having an individual needs to be next to a washroom to be able to have ready access, this may not be an optimal solution for this class. But there are other airlines where they have it up front because they have no business class type seats and they don't have that capability. So this is an area where there could be more could be done to leverage this to help people with reduced mobility. Now, there's an article a while back that was a good title. It's not you, it's a seat, and this was driven home last week as well. There's a market pressure. Everybody wants cheaper seats. When you go on like Expedia or Hotwire or whatever it may be, you're always looking for that cheapest fare flights. And the way they can do that is just to fit more seats into the aircraft. Boeing gave a market study. They looked at their deliveries over the last 10 years. So 10 years ago, on their Boeing 777, which is their wide-body twin-aisle aircraft, only so 95% of that had 9 abreast seating. In other words, 5% had the 10 abreast seating. But fast forward today, now over half of the aircraft now has 10 abreast seating. What that means is you have, just like in the image there, you have 3 seats an aisle, 4 seats aisle, 3 seats. So it's gone from 9 to 10. So what that's done is actually decreased the width of the seat from 19 inches down to 17 inches. So it makes it quite a bit more difficult, even for able-bodied individuals to use it. So that's something, it's a trend that's not helping anybody that has reduced mobility in the aircraft cabin. But there is some efforts that was presented some of the last Aircraft Interiors Expo of having dynamic seating, where you can potentially buy, say, 1.5 seats. So you would get, you can buy, to convert the 3 seats into 2 seats. So instead of having 17 inches, you might be able to get 23, 24 inches, which would be a lot more adequate for those that need the extra room. So now the other trend here is the modern aircraft cabins are becoming much more sleeker designs. And if you look, I believe this was an Airbus product, that they, even Boeing had this as well. There's, on the top picture there's a luggage bin above that, and right below the luggage bin there's a little lip, and that's actually designed for someone to grab hold up to lift themselves up out or into the seat. But now there's a trend going to more streamlined type aircraft, where you have more curved surfaces, just like shown in the lower right, and we lost the use of the handle. So it's one area where people have lost the ability to be able to pull themselves out of the seat. So I'm sure everybody's experienced the chair whiplash when you're sitting and someone behind you needs to get out of the seat. They grab a hold of your seat, pull themselves up, let go. I call it a chair whiplash. Don't blame the passenger on that. It's just the design of the aircraft right now, it doesn't allow people to be able to pull themselves out without bothering the individual in front. So what can we do to help them to move around in those seats? Another element for a more electric aircraft, you're going to see more, like you got the Boeing Dreamliner, it came out, the Airbus A350 came out, they have more and more electronics on board the aircraft. Now, if you can't tell, I have an hearing impairment, so I use this telequal pickup where I can use for listening to the in-flight entertainment. But with more electronics, it creates more electrical noise, and it can disturb my ability to be able to hear what's going on board the aircraft. But there's also a trend of using more color lighting schemes. There's technologies that are already on board aircraft where you can control lights in 3-inch increments. So if you have individuals that still not completely blind, but have some sort of eyesight, they're able to tell colors, there might be an opportunity to change some of the colors in different segments to help them guide to the seats that they need to get to. Now, they're not all trends are bad. The only thing that's improved in a lot of areas, so the aircraft engines are getting quieter. We have the airframes are getting quieter. So therefore, it's becoming easier for individuals to be able to have a conversation and talk to the air crew and understand the air crew on board the aircraft. There's an increase in use of PEDs, and that's an acronym for passenger equipment devices like tablets, phones. And there's an advantage here where if you have streaming content from the airline to their devices, people that have their specialty type devices, like Braille type device or what have you, they'll be able to take advantage of that and they'll be able to enjoy the onboard experience. And I think Airbus and even Bombardier mentioned there's a new lavatory designs coming on board, so I won't go into details. I don't want to steal their thunder on that one. Now, regional jets, both Airbus and Boeing released market reports. Over the next 20 years, the number of regional jets that are flying is not going to change. However, the larger jets like the twin aisles, the larger single aisle aircraft like you would fly like WestJet or Air Canada, will double in size in the next 20 years. And then that's important to me is that the lavatories are going to get bigger, the cabins are bigger, so there'd be more room to move inside the aircraft. Now, another important statistic is, on average, cabins are replaced every 5 years. You might have an aircraft that's 20 years old. That aircraft may have been replaced, and interiors may have been replaced 3 or 4 times lifetime. And that's important to keep in mind. There's always room to improve, even when the aircraft rolls off the assembly line. So now there are some challenges and limitations that we have to acknowledge. There are very strict certification rules, the 16 crashworthiness tests. You have your fire, smoke, and even occupancies. Like aircraft, they have a certification of how many people they can actually fly on board that aircraft. Now, the 24-month design process is very quick, so when an airline makes a decision that they want to replace the seats, come up with a new system, typically they have 24 months from the date they decide to go with the new seat and when it actually gets rolled out certified. So what that means is only about 2 or 3 months window where the design specifications could get into that product. So at the end of that cycle, those specs get implemented. So it's critical when you're trying to incorporate any type of technology to help people with limitations or disabilities to be able to get that in that critical time window in the middle. The last one I think is important is the airlines has a very unique, it's a worldwide competition. So just a case point, say if you got all the Canadian airlines, you have Air Canada, WestJet, Sunwing, Air Transit, to get them together, and then they all agree, okay, let's take a row of seats out to accommodate someone with a wheelchair in every flight. That might be fine for like domestic flights because they're all competing with each other, they're all on the same level playing field, but it doesn't make sense when they're competing in international when the other airlines are not following the same rules. So if you're going to have some sort of an agreement, it really has to be done on a worldwide stage. So now there are opportunities to improve. Just want you to be aware, there's an Aircraft Interiors Expo and Conference that's held every year in April and October. Just came back one from October. Just realized I got the wrong one underlined. The one that really is worth going to is the one that's held in Hamburg. I think this year it's the second week of April. So anybody that designs cabin attends this expo. Even there's a lot of airlines from all the world that attend this. So it's an opportunity to get a session in on a conference to help educate the designers, the operators, the pitfalls that fall in front of people that have reduced mobility, eyesight, or hard of hearing. We already heard many times about leveraging the aging population. They have a disposable income, and the airlines are paying attention to this ever-increasing demographic because of their willingness to spend money on the aircraft. So now, as you know, as people as they get older, not hearing as well as they used to, they don't see as well as they used to, and their mobility is impacted. So you're going to start to see more airlines to take note of that to accommodate that. Now, one idea that I had down the road is if someone with reduced eyesight is already aboard the aircraft and need to use the washroom, there's more and more aircraft cabins are being equipped with RFID on the parts. What it is radio frequency identification. It's similar to your credit card. When you go to pay, you tag, and then it recognizes the same concept here. There may be an opportunity to develop the technology that's wearable that'll help tell the person where they are within that aircraft cabin. So now it moves into our organization, National Resource Council Canada. We are investing in the cabin comfort. Last year, we just launched a 7-year program. It's called the Working and Traveling on Aircraft. So it's a human factors program that looks at the cabin and flight deck technologies. There's a lot of goals that we're achieving. 2 of them I just listed there. One is we want to improve the passenger comfort for all, as well as reducing cabin incidents. This could be like injuries due to like turbulence. We are investing in a $5.25 million facility in Ottawa, Ontario. It is a cabin demonstration facility that will have a fully functional laboratory, the plumbing to support the systems. We'll have the same power that you would see on board the aircraft. We're also reverse engineering the sound reproduction system, so when you're on board the aircraft, it sounds like the real deal. Providing support for in-flight entertainment and connectivity, which is IFE&C, and passenger electronic device architectures. Most importantly, it's going to be very flexible. We're having disconnections. We can switch from cabin to cabin. We're in the process of negotiating with different airframers and suppliers to supply us the cabins. So when we work with airline operators, we'll be able to reconfigure the facility to the cabin that they want to investigate. So, in conclusion, so we're a research organization. We're also technology development. We want to hear from you. What are the shortfalls that you have when you're trying to fly from location to location? Because ultimately, with our contacts with the regulatory agencies, the industries, as well as the air crew, I think we can come together and to help find ways to improve cabins that will allow travel for all. So, thank you. Well, if you have any questions, you think of something, you feel free to send me an email. You can see me after. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have.